You're listening to the podcast that changed the game and rocked an entire profession. Talking about shit in law enforcement that keeps poor leaders up at night. When others run scared and hide behind fake policies, the Roll Call Room podcast tells it like it is. No bullshit. No matter how hard these thieves try, we keep killing it. And now, here are your hosts, Nick and Mark.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Roll Call Room podcast. I am Nick, one of your co-hosts.
In his FM DJ voice this morning.
7 on the sevens. Weather is 65. I-95 is packed, as always. Ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow is 2 for Tuesday. Coming at you with the 80s.
And I'm your other co-host, Mark the Cobb. Welcome to another jam-packed episode of the Roll Call Room.
Yes. Well, since when this comes out, we would have released our threesome episode with Spinning Our Gears. We did that quite a while ago. I want to say like a month before, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we put it in the bank.
So you want to do a podcast?
Yeah. And that's
it's been a minute.
Yeah, it's been a minute, and we kind of did that one, and we put it away. And it's always interesting because we'll do these, including this one. We'll watch it or listen to it like the day before we release it. And you and I, it's funny because we'll message each other. We're like, man, I didn't realize I said this, or like it's good stuff. The threesome one I thought was good because Dr. Dave really, I felt like it was in a group therapy session. You know, like he's
I was
so
going to say,
good.
I think Dr. Dave held the camera, but
yeah. I always feel bad with Dr. Dave and I always look at him while we're like recording with him because I can't get a gauge on whether or not he thinks we need to move on.
Well, Dr. Dave
enjoys it.
Doctor. You can tell he's had years and years of therapy. He will not interject at all while you're talking. And he'll always wait for you to stop. And that's the problem with the Shield Within is that, me, I'm just like the fucking wind up little Debbie doll. It's like,
yeah. That's me
I have
too,
to keep
man.
reminding myself, shut up so David can talk. And all the fan feedback we get is like, we want more Dr. Dave. Can we get more Dr. Dave? So that's why, like with the current episode we have up, the Wives on the Line episode, he is just such a great interviewer. But because of his stance and it's you talked about him being hard to read or trying to get a gauge on him, he's got the best. I would never ever play poker with him. Never.
I could see
he'd
that.
Be sitting there with a pair of twos and I'd be thinking he's got a full house. I'd be like, ugh.
I could see that. Speaking of Wives episodes, like, we definitely have to do one with the Roll Call Room, but it's more of like it comes with some baggage, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, it's really opening up some wounds, especially in your case and my case, where we weren't the best partners through law enforcement.
Right.
I think, is that an accurate assessment?
Well, yes, but go on. I have a thought to interject, but please go ahead.
Okay. I mean, if there was a manual of what not to do towards the end of your career,
sounds like your third book. Go ahead.
Yeah, like my wife wrote a book about like being a spouse in law enforcement, and then the part is that she was in law enforcement towards the end of my career, and it was an epiphany because she like saw a lot of why I did the things that I did. Not acceptable by any means, but you can definitely see how your psyche completely changes the longer you're in the job.
Oh yeah.
Things are a little bit more acceptable that are in the gray area with your personal life. Decision making on the job is stellar, but the moment you start, meeting people, and that, when I say meeting people of the opposite sex or maybe the same sex, your values start to kind of come into question. You're kind of like, yeah, I could do this, and I could do this at the same time. And then you slowly realize that's not acceptable. Like that's just, it's not a good way of doing it. I don't think I've ever sat down with my wife on an episode. I think the last wives episode we did on RCR was Mike's wife and my wife. And it kind of turned into like, it wasn't meaningful in the sense that yours was. Like yours was very, very well done, very well put together. And I almost feel like Dr. Dave was a good moderator and should be if we did one on here.
Yeah, he brought a lot of comfort and
rationale.
Yes, yeah. He was the hand on the tiller, So I think they all felt very comfortable. I think they all felt that it was an open setting.
Yeah,
but go ahead.
And I think when you enter into that kind of show before the mic turns on is understanding that this is not a beat up session. This is not
absolutely.
Yeah, this is not you. This isn't for when the microphone comes off that it's World War III. Like it's just
right.
And that's my fear. That's my fear is, and then I think about it, which is like let bygones be bygones and kind of let it go in the past. But on the other flip side is that there are a lot of people that are watching and listening to this that are going through it right now, and sometimes hearing two people that have gone through it say, hey, listen, I've been there. I have been there.
Exactly. And if those, and there's a good segue into that, if you cannot go on and you cannot talk about it because you're so riled up, not meaning riled up, but so full of anxiety and that pain's still sharp, that means we need to do some healing. And EMDR therapy is amazing. Find an EMDR therapist and start getting your groundwork done. They used to take forever to set up, but now it's like, fuck it, jump in head first into the deep end of the pool and start getting the work done. Because the sooner you start EMDR therapy and the sooner you start that healing process, the more you're going to be able to move on. And by moving on doesn't mean that the wound isn't there. I had I saw a meme the other day. I think Shadows Behind a Badge had it, and they were talking about deep mental traumas. And it's just like, and I responded with, look, EMDR therapy along with the stellate ganglion block, it's just like I'm wounded. Okay, it's like me becoming a paraplegic. I now need this wheelchair to get around. Okay, this is my mobility device, and EMDR therapy and the stellate ganglion block and some of the new things that are coming out, those are your wheelchairs. Those help you navigate. Those help you live without losing your fucking shit. I was auditing an episode and we were talking about critical incidents, an episode of the Shield Within podcast. And we were talking about how I used to just fall to pieces talking about my critical incident during the show. And through good therapy, I mean, and I've done several sessions on my critical incident. It's literally breaking it down frame by frame, moment by moment, because I didn't realize the pile-on traumas that came through that.
Yeah.
So to loop this back to a wives episode, I realized that I inflicted deep traumas upon my wife, and she's working really hard right now to heal those parts of her so it doesn't hijack her. instead of us driving down the road and a song comes on the radio and now the wheels are coming off,
Yeah.
She's recognized that, and she's working really hard to move forward because we want to be together. We like our lives together. We know how we are, and it's working through that.
Yeah. And plus, I don't think I want to like be in the single field again because I'm afraid I would lose a kidney. Like I'd wake up in a
What, you wake up and you're in the bathtub?
Yeah. A fucking kidney missing. And a fucking Post-it note. Thanks, smiley face. As I heard you talk about that, I will tell you, I came to a realization. I think I was on a business trip just fairly recently, and I'm almost at a point where I could finally deal with those critical incident traumas. And because it's so weird, it's been almost 3 years, and all I've been focused on was the department politics that got me out, and getting rid of the chief that was there. Goal achieved, check mark. Exposing that department as corrupt, check mark. Seeing it self implode right now, still recently, check mark. All these different things. I don't need to prove anymore that the department is corrupt. I don't need to prove that there are extremely bad actors in that place. To me, it's the ground zero for me, not for everybody, but for me, that's the ground zero of corruption in law enforcement leadership. That place, and it's compounded. I sent you before we went live. It's compounded by a Washington Post article that just came out the day before we're recording this. And the title of this article, the title is White Gay Police Captain Sues Alexandria Claiming Bias in Promotions. And this article is chock full of allegations and just a short synopsis. The department did away with their deputy chiefs a couple of years ago. The dickhead chief that I had removed eliminated all of the positions. There were deputy chiefs in position. He demoted them all to captains. So then this new chief, who's just an absolute moron, I've worked for him. I worked for him when he was a sergeant. I worked for him when he was a lieutenant. I worked for him when he was a captain, and he's a moron. And there's no other way to put that. He got the promotion because he met a demographic during a time where law enforcement was anti-police and there wasn't enough diversity in law enforcement. Kudos to you. You got the job. But now with that comes a ton of responsibility.
Yeah,
this
but now he's there. He can't perform.
No. And the guy publicly comes out and says, hey, I want my deputy chiefs to be from outside of the police department. And by the way, I want them to be minorities. And when you make statements like that and you have captains that are eligible, it creates a problem for you. So this police captain, she grieved it. Her grievance was voted 3-0 in her favor. And now she's going to circuit court to sue to force the chief to promote her to deputy chief. Now, from my people inside of the department that give me information, now there is a race war within the police department. Because her allegations basically say that all the black people inside of the department don't want her to be the chief because she's white. I've worked with her. And I mean,
she's
this
not the
with
crazy
the truest...
one that made you move the chalkboard or the dry erase board, is it?
No.
Okay.
No. She's gone. But I will tell you this: I worked with her, and I mean this with all due respect and from the bottom of my heart. Yeah. Sweetie, you're not getting the promotion because you're white. You're getting it because you suck.
You're incompetent. Just because you can pass the fucking test doesn't mean that you're a good police leader.
You are a morale fucking sucker.
Read this.
Yeah. Read The Courageous Police Leader, or read a book period.
Maxwell's 21. Read John Maxwell's 21, and then tell us how you're doing. Sorry, go ahead. I can't shut up.
No. So what's interesting is that, and I don't know why the chief of police did this. He had a panel of people analyze, I guess, the applicants for deputy chief's resume, and one of them was a police officer. Not only was she a police officer, but she had like 4 years on.
Okay.
And she rated her resume or whatever her credentials were like a 1 out of 5. And
that's odd.
She rated it that way because during a COVID response meeting, this was during COVID, this particular captain came in there and was a bulldog. And that was her MO. Every meeting I have ever been in with that woman, every time we went into a meeting, it was a constant fucking fight. Every fucking time. It was her demeanor. She had to be the loudest person in the room. Yeah. There's no other way to put it. And
oh, wow.
This was also a person that when I was dealing with my officer who had terminal cancer, she interjected herself into it and had to be there. She had to be there at the funeral home to pick out the stuff. Was it for optics,
or did she actually give a fuck?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, optics only.
I think optics only. I think also because the officer was also gay, and I think that she felt like she should be a part of that, which had nothing to do. It had nothing to do with her.
Really?
Matter of fact, that officer fucking hated her. So it was quite hilarious. But the thing is I don't agree with her lawsuit. I don't agree with forcing the chief. And I can't believe I'm saying this. I don't believe in forcing the chief to make a promotion.
Right.
You can have all the best performance reviews and still be a shitty leader.
Sure.
Like that's what she hangs her hat on in this article is that all my performance reviews were outstanding.
Listen, of course, every police performance review is outstanding.
Yeah. That's why we get sued.
About that.
Yeah, listen. My last as a sergeant, all 7 years, almost 8 years that I was a sergeant, every single one of them was outstanding.
Mm-hmm.
But I still got walked out the fucking door. I still got walked out the fucking door. So what does that tell you? But but going back to my thing was, I'd been so focused on that now I think I'm slowly getting to the point where I could start dealing with, the decapitated infant child homicide that I had, the multiple jumps from 15 stories high, the shotgun to the face suicides and all those other stuff that like I just I'll deal with that later. And I think now is later.
Yeah.
And I say that because you sparked that as a talking point while you were talking. I was like, it's interesting. The healing process is, I'm
glad you had that realization this morning, Nick. So there you go. We're bringing some healing to everybody on the roll call room, even the own hosts.
Yeah.
So,
and I'm a big, huge fan of pitting a car and jumping on the hood and yanking.
Is that not the coolest shit ever? Loud golf applause. The Georgia State Highway Patrol. Yes. For going out and saving the job and creating a morale booster.
Now, and I'll say this, and you know this from being in management. When that video came out, the fucking watch commander watched that shit and was like, "Oh, he's fucking dead.
That motherfucker."
Yeah, and here's the thing. And I was gonna save this comment for I'm gonna be on Scott Medlin's show in a week or two. I was gonna save this for his show, but I'm gonna say it anyway. I think this falls into the category of we. I say we because I still consider myself we, and I consider you we. We have a serious identity crisis in law enforcement right now, in law enforcement and law enforcement leadership. We don't know what master we serve anymore. We really don't.
Right.
So do we lean into the public's happiness about the way that this Georgia state trooper handled this? Or do we lean towards the way that we've done it for over 100 years and hasn't worked for us, which is put him on administrative leave, put him under investigation, find him guilty of something so that we can wash our hands with liability.
Didn't have his hat on.
Yeah. Yeah.
We know how the troops like the Stetson flat bill. So
yeah, his tires were not 35 psi or some shit like that, man. Like, I mean, the bottom line is when you look at the video, the guy is doing donuts like a fucking idiot. Yeah, he runs over people.
Yes, I felt bad for the poor guy in the black suit that he ran over.
But he bounced back up. Like, he bounced back up, man. I mean,
it's because the pain hadn't hit yet.
Yeah. You know when that pain's gonna hit?
Wow.
When he calls Geico to sue them.
Yes, exactly. That's the more pain. Yeah. Hey, remember that black truck? Yeah, I was the guy he hit. Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, I can imagine I can tell you, and it was funny. Right after that came out, I texted another colleague, and I said, actually, he sent the video to me, and he's like, "What do you think, Sarge?" And I said, "Oh, I can remember. I can tell you what's going through my mind right now. Our former coward chief had seen that on national TV. He would be home throwing back shots because, of the stress that it's given him. And then he would come in with his little weasel pen and start going through the policy manual that he just updated. And what policies did he violate? Because, here in my world, we had a thing called pen fucking because the agency culture was, just keep stacking charges that way. It gives the prosecutor something to deal away. Yep. And I don't know where the hell that ever came from, but now they start doing that to their own people. So, and then my mind went to, okay, so what policies are being changed as a result of this? Knee-jerk policy changes because something that instantly happened. I always think they need to do with emotional decisions in law enforcement need to be just like, putting a mental person into the whatever psych ward, whatever you call it in your area, that 72-hour hold. Yeah. So whatever you're feeling today, before you change the policy, it's just like emailing angry. So before you send that, I'd be so pissed off about something. I go type the email and fuck you. And then I would throw it to drafts. I would not send it. And then get up the next morning and read it and really laugh at myself. So if you're going to do a knee-jerk reaction policy change, wait 72 hours. Yeah. That should be the rule for any policy change. But
yeah, and it's interesting because where I work now, I have a guy that works for me. And he's instilled in me with the big decisions that I make at work is to sit on it for 24 hours. Mm-hmm. And I try. Yes. I'm like 98% of the time I stick to that because there's 2% with the business that I'm in. It has to be, their decision needs to be made right away. But the majority of them I could sit on, and then like I come back to them and I'm like, that's my contempt of cop leaking into my decision making. Many drafts have been deleted. Yes. Many drafts have been deleted. And I think it's maturity. I think it's Travis Yates talks about it in that book is if you're not advancing as a leader, you're not a leader. You're That's stagnant in your career. You should constantly be looking at for other leadership books. You should constantly be looking for leadership training, but vet your training. Yes. I'm not taking anything away from any other books out there, but there is one particular book, and I'm pretty sure you know which one I'm talking about. It has a 1970s look color to it. It has a tone to it. It's two colors. And the guy put it out like in the late 80s. And he's a doctor. Not taking anything away from him. He's got a book on mental health. But it's so antiquated and outdated. But it's so safe for these law enforcement agencies. I can't even remember how many. I can't even remember. My old department used to have cases of these books in a storage room. And any time that we would have an officer that would either commit suicide or there would be someone close to us that committed suicide, they hand these books out.
Break out the books.
Yeah, this will
This is
fix
our
it.
mental health problem.
Yeah,
This is our mental
yeah,
health fix: is break out the books and give them out. I like what
yeah. It's
Yates said
great.
the other day. He quoted, I saw him on LinkedIn last week, that leadership makes heroes.
Mm.
True leaders make heroes, and I
Mhm.
thought, that strikes home, because I always, in the last, I don't know, 2 or 3 years, because I'm a camera whore. I never saw a camera I didn't like. So, and whenever they were around, I always considered it a partnership with the news media.
Mhm.
They need to get eyes on the screen, and some of these police agencies are like, no, I'm not telling them motherfucker shit. Okay, cool. But they make up what they don't know. Simply
Yeah,
is what it is. So I always believed in, after the incident, okay, when's your deadline, et cetera, et cetera. So and I always made them give me the questions first, because I didn't want that
yeah,
up the nose, duh, that look,
yeah,
make you look stupid. And some
yeah,
people will do that intentionally. But I stopped doing that, and I started training my crew on how to do the soundbite, because I wanted them on the camera. I wanted them doing the soundbite, and I taught them how to do it, because my day was, and I saw the sunset coming. It was time to move on. But
yeah.
if you don't train those people up, how do you do that? And I think true leadership is the person that's taking the camera off of them and putting someone else up, and recognizing that leadership, even at the basic academy level. And when you were
Mhm.
talking about, if you don't have leadership training at your agency, you got to train yourself. And
Mhm.
I really think that was great that you said that. Start vetting the leadership training that you're looking at. Start thinking about the books and I've read Covey, and I've read, who the hell's the other one? And I'm just like, this is shit. But then when I
Mhm.
read Travis Yates,
Mhm. Yeah.
yes, yes, yeah. Every chapter was, fuck yeah, we got that here too. You know, I have the pleasure of knowing him.
Mhm.
He's a great man. He's a great trainer.
Yeah.
Also being a law enforcement trainer, him and I had that common ground, because we're both drivers. But and there's some other great ones out there as well. Again, people talk about Maxwell. Well, he's just a big pastor. Well, yeah, he was a pastor of a megachurch, but he has to know about what leadership is and everything. Everyone references Maxwell in all leadership training. And I just had this
Mhm.
talk the other day with a recruit class we just wrapped up on, and the kids that were in my car, and I talked about that. I said, look, our next leadership is right now.
Mhm.
And let's see, from 2020 to 2021, just kind of those classes that were running then, don't think so much. I think those are hole fillers. But these last two classes that I've had the honor of teaching in, we got some leadership there, dude.
I hope
And
so.
these clown chiefs that are out there right now, these post turtles that are in the job right now, have leaders underneath them.
Mhm.
One agency I'm thinking of right now has a very strong leader, and they're trying to squeeze this guy out. And I told him, I said, dude,
Shocker.
don't, yeah, imagine that. I said, don't be me. Get your education. Because I'm the only way I could get an education is to be online, and I am not an online student. Know what kind of learner you are. So he's doing that, and I said, the industry needs you, so please stay,
Mhm.
please stay, but get away from this fucking idiots that you work for, and go be a chief of police somewhere else. Because he doesn't work for a police agency; he works for the other people that take care of the jail.
Yeah.
But develop those leaders. And I'm sorry, I just totally hijacked and got us totally off
No, no,
base.
dude.
So let's loop it back to Alexandria. I want to close out on that with your the headline that you got, because I laughed so hard when you sent me that. I was like, oh my
Yeah.
god. Um, so do you think that this lawsuit has merit, and do you think that
Oh
is she just
yeah.
going
I
to collect
mean,
a check and move on? Do you think, or
no, she's got some close friends. One was a deputy chief with us before. She was one of the ones that got demoted. She sued the
mm,
city and she lost because there was no financial loss.
mm,
The dickhead chief that I had removed, he was very strategic. He demoted them all down to captain, but kept them at deputy chief pay. So
so it's a
what they were
problem?
suing for, well, what they were suing for was is it ruins their ability to earn after they leave the department. So in other words, that they were deputy chiefs, they can interview for chief positions outside when they wanted to. Now being a captain, their qualification kind of goes down, which to me is horse shit.
Oh,
It doesn't
yeah.
fucking matter.
But
You
but
have
once you're
captains get promoted.
but once you're deputy chief, it's always on your resume.
Right.
Aren't you referred to as the last position that you were? I haven't been a sergeant. I haven't actually worked as a sergeant. I mean, your guys still call you Sarge, right?
Yeah.
You're Sarge.
Yeah.
You're not Nick. You're Sarge. My guys say,
Yeah.
just doesn't feel right calling you Mark.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that was a big adjustment getting promoted. Was my name changed from Nick to Sarge, and that was like a huge change. And then when I took the lieutenant's process, and I scored like top of the list, I was getting called LT without even the promotion, and that was a huge honor. It was a huge honor.
Yeah.
And
does it
even
make you
now,
smile now when they call you Sarge? Hey, Sarge, how you doing?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, does it give you a cringe or does it give you warmth and happiness?
There's some depression with that too, because I'm like, I miss it at times. I miss the camaraderie. I miss that. But then I also look at how many people disappeared. Like, I think I only talked to 2 people that used to work for me in the police department. And it just proves, how, your relationships and your ties with these people. The moment you walk out that door, I give it 2 weeks. You're old fucking news, man.
Oh, yeah. Well, in those people, but here's where I want you to embrace this thought. You shared with me, and I'm going to brag a little bit about one of our episodes we did before I joined you on the roll call room. Was an off duty and on the air, and you said it had 28,000 downloads. It was a very high number, and if I'm wrong, I apologize. But it was around 30,000. You're like, holy shit! This thing really took off. So what I want to do is kind of put this into the roll call room family, and that if everyone that listened to that episode and everyone that's listening now to the roll call room, I think that's our new group. You are our people, and thank you so much for listening. And when we talked offline, we talked about a little more fan interaction and. Let's reach out to you, and we really appreciate it. And that's the one thing that that was so funny the other day. Nick sends me my first roll call room interaction, and I'm like, "Where the hell did you find that at?"
So an OCD or ADD moment. I was looking for your email address and spinning our gears, because we've been emailing back and forth about this new episode that was coming out, and I put your name and I put Mark, and the first thing that popped up was a Twitter message, and it was very nostalgic. It was from 2021. 1:40 in the morning, so early in the morning, and it was hey Nick and Mike, I wanted to reach out to you to tell you guys keep up the good work. I'm not on Facebook anymore. I'm on this crappy social media to rattle the cage with the lefty. I'm going to believe that out. I'm a regular listener to your podcast. I'm working Leo in Ohio, Sergeant on Midnights. I have a nightmare story to share with you if you're interested. I'm a fellow comedy podcaster. And would love to be a guest sometime. I'm honored to sit in. Take care. Best of luck with the coffee, Mark. And it's very nostalgic because I screenshot this and I sent it to you, and I said, went from your first message to being the co-host of the show. That's pretty awesome, man.
What's that song? We went from rags to riches.
yeah. Or from the frying pan to the fire,
Exactly. I'm very honored and humbled to be here, though. So, the whole family aspect of it is if you're a listener here because you relate to the show, you relate to the stories, and you and I have had just miserable stories. I mean, you wrote about it in Policeman O' Barricade. I'm working on my book that's called The Pawn. If I get off my ass, and the reason with the delay in it is because it really just puts me back there, and it gets me in a horrible mental spot. And then if I'm working on it towards the first of the month and the full moon, I'm just a shit show. So it's coming along. And my goal is to have it done by the end of the year. you've held you're my accountability coach. You know, you're like, get the fucking chapters done. Just do one a week. Just, you know, blah, blah, blah. But we want to thank you, the fans, for listening to the show and realize you're not alone. Everyone's going through this shit. Everyone, even in other countries, our friends up in Canada, you're going through this shit. And I think the goal of this podcast is to get these fuckheads out of the upper echelon. You know, when my first show here was the Yellow Brick Prick, and I had a friend of mine just randomly say, dude, I just listened to that. Fucking spot on, bro.
Yep. That's so much feedback on Yellow Brick Prick, which was, I can't believe you went after FBI NA. And I said, no. I'm going to stop you. We didn't go after him. It's the ideology. It's the same thing as the IACP. You can't sit there and turn around and tote leadership, law enforcement leadership, and bring in money from the government, and your constituents are responsible for how many law enforcement suicides. It's not years past where these cops are clipping themselves because of financial issues or extramarital issues and this other shit. It is a direct result of poor law enforcement leadership. Yes. And the IACP is the biggest offender because they have yet to turn around and hold. They got their conference coming up in October. I saw their agenda. I don't see anything on there about how poor law enforcement leadership is a direct line to law enforcement mental health issues.
Right.
And they just turn their blind eye to it. And I'll go even a step further. When you have organizations like Blue Help, I don't see you at your booth pushing books like Travis Yates's book, my book, Scott Medlin's book, all these different people that are, in my opinion, subject matter experts in poor law enforcement leadership. But instead,
you got two of them right here.
Right. But instead, you take in government funds, government grants, you hold your little poker runs, you print out your little stickers, and you make these little graphs, and you do all this stuff, but you're doing nothing to affect. Because, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again, when I was on the corner of my bed holding my gun in my hand, I knew nothing about Blue Help.
Yeah.
I knew nothing. It was nowhere.
Right.
Nowhere. I had to physically go out and go seek it. And that's a huge fucking problem.
Correct.
But I digress. That'll be a whole other episode.
It's not digression. It's a repeating of the constant theme, because I was the same way the first time I had my 40 in my mouth. Where was anything? It was in my actual former leader, wash my mouth out with soap, former manager, former chief, said this to me: if you go to therapy, you're weak. And that was his way to go. That was him to the core. So he didn't give a fuck. And when I was on administrative leave, and my relief sergeant, God bless you, and he got out right before I did, was in there throwing a fit in his office and said, he's suicidal. And my chief looked at him and said, well, let's just hope he has other friends. What a fucking prick. Fuck you, dude. Really? That's what you think about your people? You're so caught up in this narrative that you're trying to prove that it's okay for Mark to go ahead and kill himself. And I actually think that's what he wanted to do. I believe it to this day, to my core, that had I killed myself then, because I was every day I woke up thinking, how am I going to do it today? But I think that was his goal, because if I would have killed myself,
you'd be out of his hair. You'd be out of his hair.
Yes, thank you for saying that. It would have made his life a lot better. And that's what
after
I think he gave a fuck about.
After the memorial service, a week, maybe 2 weeks of bad press, and that would have been the end of it. Now you're like me. I'm on Twitter almost every like this article that came out from the Washington Post. Every time the police department pushed something up, they had Girl Scouts that did a tour. I put that article, a clip to that article. They had an article about recruits starting the academy.
Yep.
I put a link to that article. That's gonna be my life for the next 6 months. Every single time you post something,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna put a link to that article because I want every single person to read that article right after your bullshit post.
Yeah.
And I want to go back. I want to go back.
Sure.
And this is, and I don't want to turn this episode into a beat up on IACP and Blue Help, but I'm going to do it anyway. Blue Help, Blue Help when we were, Blue Help when we were at our pinnacle, like when we started and we were fucking kicking ass.
Mm-hmm.
And those of you that don't know, that weren't with us from the original, we had posters up that had bluehelp.org on them.
Mm-hmm.
And we were plugging them. Go back and listen to our episodes.
Okay.
And there was some stuff that happened behind the scenes. I'm not going to embarrass anybody or embarrass myself about what happened behind the scenes, but all it did was really wake me up to the deficiencies of what was going on, because we were trying to communicate with them to come on to our show. We wanted to turn around and have a Blue Help podcast, which now they have one, and it's fucking god awful. And all the things that we told them, hey, listen, if you want to get the respect from law enforcement officers, or do you want them to listen to you, you're going to need 2 cops that are currently cops or retired cops. Because I can tell you from experience, and Mark, you can agree to this. You can disagree or agree. When we would have roll calls and people would come in and talk to us about mental health or well-being or mind, body, like shit like that, holistic shit.
Yeah.
We used to fucking laugh. We used to turn away from them, or we would leave roll call. We would roll out. We'd meet up somewhere and make fun of them. Because unless you're a cop,
post roll call,
we don't want to hear.
Right. Yeah.
Unless you're a cop, or you go in there and you're a former cop, they ain't listening to shit.
Nope.
So it doesn't matter whether or not you started a suicide prevention organization, or you got a whole bunch of attractive women that work for you. That don't mean shit. All that means is that they want to use them as a fucking pincushion.
Yeah,
that's what they want to do.
It's hunting. That's all it is. That's to get your attention.
Yeah, I mean, and then there's other things, like you start looking at 501(c)(3) paperwork that's filed with the feds, and you're like, where's all that money going? Like, it's a lot of money. It's a lot. Yeah, I sent you one from the IRS, and you and I both had the same reaction. We were like, what the fuck? Like, and my company has we have a organization within our company called Former Law Enforcement Officers for our company. And so they put out a thing working with Blue Help, and I emailed the organizer and I was like, I would caution you working with them. And they were like, why? And I said, I sent them the fucking thing I sent you. And I was like, I don't think you want our company associated with that. And they were like, well, this will be the last time we work with them. And I said, it's a smart choice. It's a smart choice. But I digress. Speaking about fans, I wanted to read out something, and you might have one as well. But we get emails all the time. At the end of these episodes, we give you our information. Email us. But Jeff has emailed us before, and Jeff wrote in, just finished reading Exit Wounds, incredible book. Sad to see that our department isn't the only one so fucked up. Love to leave a copy serendipitously in every higher up's mailbox for them to read, assuming that they can read, of course. Glad my wife and I are still doing equine therapy, and going to keeps us sane. Keep up the amazing work, you guys. I'm glad you're doing equine therapy. I was, it's been a while since we talked about it. I think that was the first time we talked about Jeff and equine therapy. I'm glad the horses are doing okay when they're not throwing Mark off. Yeah,
for the fans that don't know, my my 17-year-old gelding chucked me off the other day, but it wasn't all his fault. And I'm a Harley rider. I'm a biker, but this knucklehead must have been the noob because he was on an 883. He wasn't a real biker yet. We were riding along a state route and big wide berms. We had plenty of room, but this knucklehead's out there, blah, 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 racking the pipes. I'm like, who the hell does shit like that? But it startled my horse, and he went left and I went right. Out of the saddle
That's
again.
not good. That's not good, man. That's definitely not good.
But as they say, I got back in the saddle and we finished the day out.
Well, I'm happy. I'm happy you did. You messaged me that you had been in a horse accident, and actually, the first thing I thought of was Jeff, because we had done like a whole segment on horses, I think last season. So thanks, Jeff. I appreciate it. Warms our heart. We look at numbers all the time about how the show is doing. So it's good to see people write in and kind of give us the feedback. We love it.
Well, I have one. Was you done? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you.
Yeah. No, I was turning it over to you.
I got one from Jason from Texas, and we're not going to get any more specific than that. However, his message was that, hey, it's kind of like finding the roll call room is like finding that $100 coin or whatever that treasure on the beach. Oh my God, look at this. It's like finding the diamond wedding ring or something. But he had discovered the show and was listening to us, and he was like, man, I thought we were the only ones. And that's kind of a repeating theme with the roll call room. But what he was talking about, his chief is very strong leader, but it's the mid-management again that is fucking the troops. And I guess that we are putting a lot of pressure on the chiefs, and that pressure, you wanted to be here. Right? No one's forcing you to strap the eagles on those lapels, right? So strong leadership means you have to make strong and bold decisions. And if your vision isn't being shared by your mid-management, which is the complaint that Jason was sharing with me, was that from lieutenants to captains to deputy chief, and he referred to them as dipshits, which they are. I mean, how many times have we seen that? And you made reference earlier in this episode was that, I worked with this fuckhead when he was a sergeant. He was incompetent, and then here. So it's just the incompetence. You just change out the collar brass, but you still got the same moron. It's like putting a silk hat on a pig. It's still a pig, But the problem is in law enforcement, we need to get honest. Like Jay Clark said, we all need to start having a good, honest conversation. We did an episode on evals, and police evaluations need to be honest. You said it. I had glowing evals when they threw me out the door. I did too. All high marks, all model employee. So why are you running this guy out of town on a rail? Well, I can tell you in my case, it's because I was a threat. I was a threat to the heir apparent, because no one knew who the heir apparent was, but everybody knew who the hell Mark the cop was. I talked about on our last episode we recorded. But like here, these chiefs aren't holding these mid-managers accountable. Yeah. And I firmly believe that if you're a chief, and in this day and in age, like right now, we're doing a podcast, why aren't these chiefs putting out video messages? The problem I always had was that we would go into a command staff meeting, and all of us sergeants, because, small jerk-off department I was at, it was just patrolman sergeant chief. So we had our command staff meeting to make it sound like we had a bunch of commanders there. So it was all the sergeants and the chief. And everyone would give out the same message different, all 4 shifts, because I would take a sampling of the officers when I talked to them. What was your report out on the sergeant's meeting? Well, I was told this. That's not how it was presented. Yeah. So it's the messenger, not the message. And if you're a chief, and we know you're listening, and for those of you in IA that are listening, tell your boss when you talk to them that they need to start doing video messaging to all their troops. Friday morning, hey, good morning. I'm Chief so-and-so. It's Friday morning, blah, 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 blah. This is what I would like for you to do. Or this is the message I have for you today. So each officer hears it and interprets it. And you get your goddamn command staff in line. because I know for a fact that I've seen it happen to where mid-level managers lie to the sheriff, they lie to the chief to get their personal agenda going. And if you don't have your thumb on the pulse, then you need to get your thumb on the pulse. You need to start doing, you need to start talking to your people from the ground up. And if you're that chief that doesn't go to roll call, if you're that chief that doesn't stop in and visit with your people and try and get a true pulse, or I said that again, I'm sorry, just get the vibe of your department, you are failing.
Yeah.
You're failing as a leader. You know, these
Big
people,
time.
you need them. And this is what I told a colleague the other day. Fuck that guy. You want to know what? If you leave today, it's going to be 8 months to a year before they can replace you. This motherfucker doesn't appreciate what he's got sitting in front of him, and fuck him. But and they're like, well, but if I leave, the crew's going to get screwed. I said, they can leave too. Everyone's fucking hiring. You know, have a mass walkout. Then after you guys quit, come back to a council meeting, and under public notes or public time, the public forum, everybody should have 5 minutes at the end of the meeting. Everyone line up there and tell the council what a piece of shit this guy is. We all left because he's a turd. You people hired him. You people deal with him, because until this changes, ain't nothing going to change.
Right.
Like the waggy finger. You think kind of cool? That's a new effect.
Yeah. And I could tell you, man, from experience, leaving the department and going back to it because I thought I created a deficit and they needed me and my team needed me. That was a bunch of bullshit, man. Like,
well, but you're going to push pause right there. All that is true. What you didn't, and goes right back to Maxwell's 21. The law of navigation is what you violated. You just didn't navigate it right. Your team did need you, and the department did need you, and you did do a good job. It's the assholes that were 2 steps above you that could have given 2 fucks. It's the evil motherfucker that said, oh, yeah, we'll bring you back. I mean, they put up the sugar and the spice, and you're like, oh, I'm going to go back in as the sergeant. Everything's going to be different. I'm going to be happy now, and blah, 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 because you jumped over the fence thinking the grass was greener, and you landed in the fucking pit fill or the gravel, and you're like, oh, fuck. Didn't think this one out.
Yeah,
I think, and I'm going to be brutal with you here a little bit, Nick, and this is what I promised you by being your co-host, is that you made an emotional decision.
Oh, totally.
It's nothing wrong.
Totally.
You made that emotional decision because you ate the fuck up of PTSD, and you, again, weren't able to navigate. And this guy was right there with you, bro. Right there with you, but never crossed the same river twice, boys and girls. But all that was true. So don't beat yourself up on, they did need you, they did miss you, and they did like working with you. All that's there. It's just the guy above you said, yeah, come on in. You said that shit on the way out the door. I'm going to put your face in that mud puddle, and I'm going to rub your face in the mud. That's what you didn't see coming.
I think it was a bit of naiveness to it. And I think it was a little bit too much trust. Like,
right. Exactly.
I was playing checkers, and that dickhead chief was playing chess. And I just didn't see it.
4-level chess.
I mean, grandmaster chess player. Like, and you know, but the thing is, it kind of reminds me of, and I don't do politics on here, you know that. It kind of reminds me of this whole Trump thing. Like,
oh yeah,
you know, you can keep indicting, you can take his mugshot, man.
That was the dumbest thing they ever did, dude.
Oh my God.
Did you see the one with the gangsta glasses and the warning down that explicit content?
The amount of savagery from that man, where he's now using his own mugshot as merch, is epic level shit, man. Like, he's just like, you've enraged people that typically don't get involved in politics,
right?
And I'm one of those people. Like, I may go vote, I may not go vote. It's hit or miss. But I can tell you, November 12th of 2024, I'm gonna go vote. I'm gonna tell you right now. So, as a career law enforcement person, to utilize the criminal code in the manner in which has been used is literally declaring war on our criminal justice system.
Oh yeah,
it is dangerous. It's dangerous to do. And I grew up in New York City. I grew up with Trump. The guy as a person not a great guy. Like he's
Right.
just personally, he's not a nice guy.
Mm-hmm.
But the bottom line is he's a businessman,
Right.
and whether you agree with his policies or you don't, you got to look at what you got now and what you had before.
Mm-hmm.
I prefer a president to wake up in the morning and know where they are.
Right. Yeah. Did you see that shit with him and okay, we're not going to get political. But what I do want to say is I live in the flight line, okay, of Dayton International Airport. So if you approach from the north, if you're flying in from Chicago, and because that bitch down there in Fulton County, this lunatic district attorney is like, oh, we're going to get Trump. You ever wonder why? Why do we got to get Trump? Why?
You know, I talked to my kids last night because we don't talk politics too much in this house, and you know, my kids have a little bit of a different political view than I do, and that's perfectly fine.
Mm-hmm.
And they all agreed last night. It was my wife and my two girls, and I said, what you really have to look at is election day is November 2024.
Mm-hmm.
Take a look at what all of his court dates are for next year. And if that's not voter suppression, I don't know what is.
That exactly.
Like, what are you afraid of by postponing his trial to December of 2024?
Right.
What would make the difference? The only difference is that you're afraid that the American people are going to vote for him. And that's,
they've already guaranteed that. And that's why I'm telling you, I'm going to put a gigantic flag on the roof of my house that's pro and anti the current candidate or the current idiot, the potato that's in there now. Yeah. So everyone flying over my home will see that message, you know, because I got a couple of people, and I have liberal friends, and I love them, and I leave their comments up on my personal Facebook page. And everyone around me is conservative. I'm Catholic. I'm conservative. You know, I don't hide that a bit. I believe in being reasonable. Well, yeah, Trumpy.
Right.
Honestly, Nick, I can't stand to listen to the man talk.
Yeah.
Honestly,
I'm the same.
He just repeats himself. Yeah, it's just like, to me, at times listening to the man talk is like fingers on a chalkboard. However, I became a conservative back in the Reagan years, and you never heard anybody going, "We got to get Reagan." You know, I don't understand why. The country was extremely prosperous. The country had great patriotism rolling under him, and that patriotism right now, as hard as they're trying to crush it out, as hard as they're trying to crush that voice, it's everyone, you know. And again, I really want to come off of this because I will talk forever about it, but go vote your conscience and vote the reason why they're trying to put out a certain narrative, and just think about that for a little bit, everyone listening.
Yeah, I think this next 12 months is going to be very, very interesting.
We're right. And despite the fact of this crap that they keep throwing on, because you and I think I can tell you that I really relate to that, because I've walked in those shoes. You know, I was persecuted. I had my name out there. He's accused of doing this. Oh, really? Yeah. If you Google me and you read the article, you're like, oh my God, this guy is horrible. Well, it's because the reporter was clearly biased when they wrote the article.
Yep.
Funny. Not a shred of evidence of anything.
Well, and that's why I get so fired up about this particular issue in the politics thing. I think because I can relate to it as well.
Exactly. You were accused of something you never did.
No. And I always read the court documents, like the one in New York City. I read the indictment on, and I was like, you're charging him 42 times when he did two things, but you're quadrupling it, so it looks like more felonies.
Yeah, you're just throwing enough shit on the wall, hoping some of it sticks. That's all it is.
When I worked in New York City, I couldn't even get a fucking murderer charged up the right way. But this guy's got 42 count. Like, it's bonkers to me. And then you read the Georgia one, and you're like, RICO statutes. You charged him under RICO? Like, he didn't agree with the election. He called people and said, hey, listen, we need to find votes.
It's a conspiracy.
What the dude? We're gonna have to do the roll
All
call
right.
room politics because we could go on, man.
Exactly. Do we got a Nick's pick this episode?
We
It's
do.
time for drum roll. Nick's picks.
Do I have a soundbite for it? Oh.
We'll get one.
No, it doesn't want to load.
You said load.
Load. We got Nick's picks. The question came to us from our good friends over at Spinning Our Own Gears. And the question, yes, Sog. The question was, do you have any interesting guests lined up for the future? And the answer is yes, we do. Right now, we're figuring out because we record these so early. Is doing like an early episode beginning and then do our guests like in the afternoon, evening time, and then kind of splice it together because we want to make sure that it kind of jives. So
yeah,
it is coming. It is
and
coming.
We're wearing the same clothes.
Yeah. We're gonna have to remember that.
Yeah. Nick will have hair, and then and when he starts interviewing, he shaved his head again, and
no beard.
Yeah, we actually got some pretty exciting stuff coming up.
Yeah,
it's we'll get back to, so you want to have a podcast. It's a matter, everyone's busy. We had a really dynamite guest lined up, but then my schedule changed and it just fucked everything. So the guests like, okay, we never heard back from them.
Yeah.
But so it happens, you know.
It is what it is.
But we got some exciting people coming along.
Yeah. But that brings us to our 1 hour mark. So
and it's time for Nick to poop.
Yeah. Oh yeah. As always, you can reach me at nick@rollcallroom.com. You can reach Mark at MARC, not MARK.com.
Correct.
At rollcallroom.com. You can also go on rollcallroom.com. Check us out on there. And Mark, what do you got for us to close us out, bud?
Well, I'm going to do some shameless plugs for you. So we have Police Mental Barricade 2, Exit Wounds coming up. Check it out. If you would ever get your daggone Facebook page done for the coffee line.
Yeah.
We need to get that up and rolling. You're back in roasting coffee again. I'm looking forward to that. I've tried some others. So that's just kind of a side project because I love coffee. And if anybody knows me, there's two things I like is coffee and bourbon. And we'll stop there with that list. Take care of yourself, guys. I tell you what, right now, it's the pendulum has swung. The pendulum's swinging back. Hats off to Georgia State Patrol for going out and being cops again, regardless of what these liberal expletives put out there. Boys and girls in my world in Southwest Ohio, people love the police. And even though I'm off the job, I still get people saying, man, thanks for your service, bro.
Yeah.
And you still get that too. And it's hard to put reality to the narrative. And the narrative is that everybody hates the cops, but no one wants to live in the toilet. And crime is always in someone else's neighborhood. But when it comes to your neighborhood, fuck that shit. Yeah. And if the police ain't there, and everyone's, and what really has saddened me is that the narrative is out there that, well, you can't take care of your own stuff. Ask that 7-Eleven owner out there in California. Yeah, you're not coming in my store. Remember, just go out and rent the movie Walking Tall. The story of Tennessee Sheriff Buford Pusser. And just go watch that movie and then send us some comments and tell me what you think about there. The only way to fight evil is to kill it. And it is out there. And I'm not saying going out and kill people, but you have to be proactive. And that's what the cops do. And where I'm going with this is that